What do you want?
Ah, the direct approach. I admire that in a man with a mask. You don't really think you'll win, do you?
Things change.
Meow.
You're not the mayor.
Things change.
You got kind of a dark side, don't you?
No darker than yours, Bruce.
The summer of 1992 saw Batman Returns arrive on the big screen, produced on a large budget of $80 million and recouped about $260 million worldwide. It wasn't as successful as the first film, but still ranked third as the most popular film that year. Tim Burton took some persuading to do a sequel, but Warner's tempted him back by letting him have free rein of the picture and giving him a lot of creative control. The film was criticised on release by critics and fans for its darker tone and not being acceptable for a general audience. Children and parents were upset by the film, but probably down to misconception. The filmmakers didn't aim this at children, but I think just down to it being Batman and the advertising was in full force really gave many of the public the wrong impression. As a kid I was desperate to see it. I got all the toys at the time. Looking back now, it's quite funny how many different action figures of Batman there were at the time, such as Camouflage Batman, Laser Cannon Batman, Deep Dive Batman. I'm surprised there wasn't a Going Out Batman. Michael Keaton returns and also took some encouraging to put back on the suit. He got a heavy pay rise to $10 million to play Batman, and again he sold his likeness to the toy manufacturers, so he did make a lot of money. Just as before, he does a good job in the role. He has a great voice when he is in the suit, and maybe he is a bit too relaxed when it comes to playing Bruce Wayne in this one. Danny DeVito as the Penguin does a fantastic job with all the makeup on. He brings his character to life despite his characterisation not being faithful to the comics and his story not being that interesting. Catwoman, played by Michelle Pfeiffer, is incredibly sexy, especially in a super tight outfit. She probably has the best story arc in the film and probably the most interesting character, despite as well not being entirely faithful to her comic book counterpart. Christopher Walken plays a powerful, ruthless business mogul who serves as Selina Kyle's boss, Max Schreck. Chris always provides an exciting performance in all his films. The strange thing is, he comes across as the main villain to a certain degree, despite him being a made-up character for the film. In Gotham City, a wealthy couple throw their deformed infant son into the sewer. The boy survives, however, and is found by a flock of penguins. 33 years later, the child Oswald Cobblepot resurfaces as a criminal, the Penguin, who kidnaps millionaire industrialist Max Schreck with evidence of his corporate crimes. Cobblepot blackmails Schreck into helping him leave the sewers to become part of Gotham's elite. The Penguin arranges for the mayor's child to be kidnapped, whom he then rescues in order to set himself up as a public hero. Late one night, upon returning to his office, Schreck surprises his secretary Selina Kyle in the course of her preparation for a meeting with Bruce Wayne regarding Schreck's proposed power plant. While innocently pulling relevant documents, Selina accesses Schreck's protected files, uncovering compromising information, revealing that the plant will drain Gotham Power's supply. Realising Selina knows too much, Schreck pushes her out of a window, leaving her for dead on the ground many stories below. Selina survives the fall after being revived by Alley Katz. She returns to her apartment, then suffers a psychotic breakdown and reinvents herself as Catwoman, who wants to get revenge on her boss. Schreck then hatches a plan to recall Gotham City's current mayor and elect the Penguin in his place in order to cement his control over the city and complete his power plant project. Penguin's gang of circus performers cause chaos around Gotham to create bad press for the mayor. Meanwhile, Bruce's alter ego, Batman, tries to defend Gotham from Catwoman and the Penguin's gang. Catwoman and the Penguin team up in an effort to rid Gotham of Batman. However, Selina falls in love with Bruce after he invites her for an evening at his mansion. The Penguin kidnaps the Ice Princess, a woman chosen to turn on the Gotham Christmas tree lights, and frames Batman for the crime. Finding the princess balancing precariously on the ledge of a high building, Batman tries to save her, but to no avail. The Penguin unleashes an umbrella full of bats, which frightens the princess into plunging to her death, and makes it look like Batman killed her. Danny Elfman is back to score Batman Returns, and provides a great soundtrack, but it lacks the energy and aggressiveness of the first film, but does successfully create a more moody and say creepier score than his previous efforts. It's certainly very operatic and theatrical. Danny throws in more of his usual musical motifs, which are very common today with his current scores, with a heavy use of choirs and that mad sort of circus-style repetitive beat he uses. There are moments of his Scrooged and Edward Scissorhands scores making their way into this soundtrack. The music is great to listen to by itself, and there is a 2-disc limited edition CD set released, but unfortunately it's sold out, and now it goes for a lot on eBay. The first Batman film had many conversions to the home computers and consoles when it came out, and Batman Returns receives the same treatment, and I think has more conversions to the games machines at the time, arriving on the Mega Drive / Mega CD, Game Gear, Master System, NES, Super Nintendo, Atari Lynx, Amiga and the PC. Many people would have played the Mega Drive and Super Nintendo versions. The Sega version was a very generic platformer with average graphics and a high difficulty level. The Mega CD version had these amazing driving sequences which looked incredible at the time, but just like the platform elements, many Batman fans found it difficult to get through the levels. The SNES version was a side-scrolling beat-em-up, which was beautifully animated and had a great soundtrack, but was a little too easy to complete. But it didn't stop the fans returning to the game on a frequent basis. The PC version, which I never played before, looks very good, done in the style of a point-and-click adventure game. The one version to avoid, though, is the Amiga game. It had nice cutscenes, but the gameplay was awful. Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert were split on Batman Returns. Gene Siskel enjoyed the film, but felt Max Schreck should have been left out, and Roger felt the movie had no narrative.
Batman Returns was once again directed by Tim Burton. His credits also include Beetlejuice and Edward Scissorhands. And Burton is one of the most interesting stylists at work in the movies today. His movies are always terrific to look at. Batman Returns is consistently fascinating as a visual experience. But it's sort of hard to care about this movie. The storyline is confusing, the characters are only sketchily developed, and it's impossible to get involved in the fantastical story. I always felt I was watching from the outside. There are some strange contradictions here. Batman is not a successful movie, but it is, visually at least, an inspired one.
Well, you know, Roger, I think that there are elements to get involved in the story. I did, and I enjoyed the picture. And the two parts that I enjoyed were the Penguin and the Catwoman characters. I think Michelle Pfeiffer is a good comedian and doing good light comedy. And we see her as the office worker who's going to be turned in after she's abused into Catwoman. And then Danny DeVito, I thought was actually pretty threatening and sad as this little baby, this ill-formed baby who's abandoned. And I thought, this is what Tim Burton does. He gives us characters, including Batman himself, who all have this private pain that they then work out publicly.
Yeah, but you see, the thing is with Catwoman and with the Penguin is that they emerge, they are developed as characters, we get the backstory, and then they don't go anywhere. There is no engine pulling this train. There is no story to really get us from the beginning of this movie to the end, and instead what you have are set pieces, set design, character design, costume design, even personality design, but no narrative.
The problem in the picture, it's not a perfect picture. The problem is the Max Schreck character. Frankly, he isn't particularly interesting. In his story and what he wants to do and how these other two characters fit in, I agree with you, that isn't worked out. But the point is that in seeing the story, I just saw this as a personal story rather than an action story.
Yeah, but the thing is, maybe if the Penguin had wanted to do what it is that the Schreck character wants to do, to give him some kind of an agenda.
I agree with you.
Because the problem is you have the two most interesting characters basically standing around as participants in somebody else's story.
There's no need for Max Schreck, Christopher Walken, in this picture at all.
Batman Returns is a movie with more style over substance. A great effort has gone into the visual design of the film, the costumes, the makeup and the lighting. There is no denying this movie looks fantastic, but to any film the story is most important and it does fall short in many areas, and the third act is just a huge letdown. A very underwhelming final battle, which doesn't even come close to the Batman and Joker confrontation in the first film. Some fans may like how things turn out in Returns, but to a sequel to a big movie, you have to think big and try and entertain a wide audience. Tim Burton clearly can't shoot action and doesn't seem that interested in it. You have a nice choreographed fight scene, but everything else is very average. It was a lot more exciting in the first movie, and near the end the fights were more brutal. What I think they got right, and probably even better than The Dark Knight Rises, is the relationship between Bruce and Selina. The scenes together are clearly the most effective parts. The dance between them at the party had the best dialogue, and you do feel kinda sad at the end that they can't be together. But on the whole, the movie is very downbeat, and feels a bit bitter in many ways. It's not a Batman movie, it's a Tim Burton film which just happens to have Batman in it. As a kid I really enjoyed it, but over time the more I watch it, the more I lose interest in it. Everyone is obviously aware of the huge continuity error near the end where he pulls his mask off. The black makeup around his eyes has disappeared. It does show some laziness to the direction. Tim could have shot from behind as he removed the mask and panned round, instead of throwing in a quick shot without the makeup on. But there are many silly moments in this movie. Batman punching through the bottom of his car, the Batmobile having these implausible tricks and gadgets, Penguin driving a duck-shaped vehicle. How does the Penguin and the circus gang get the blueprints to the Batmobile? A lot of things in this movie don't make sense, or are unexplained, and people say this movie is dark and serious. Well, it's a very uneven movie and has moments of campiness. Tim Burton really had too much creative freedom and got lost in the visuals, and didn't focus on the main story and staying faithful to the source material. He doesn't seem interested in Batman at all, but instead pinpoints his direction on the villains, in which there are too many. I'm not going to get into the debate of Tim Burton versus Chris Nolan. At the end of the day, you can look at these films as spin-off series from the original comics. Tim Burton has his short series, and Nolan has his one-off trilogy, and you can enjoy both of them. They are very different and they have their pros and cons. It's all down to personal taste. The changes Tim Burton had made to his incarnation of Batman and the villains may not bother you at all, and you can enjoy the films for what they are, and I respect that. It's only a movie, but in hindsight, I wish it did continue on from the previous film and maintain that tone and look, and attempted to keep Batman central to the story in this sequel.
I am Catwoman. Hear me roar. Ban the bat.
Oh, him again. No bother. He's already history. Check it out. We're gonna disassemble his Batmobile and turn it into an H-bomb on wheels. I played this stinking city like a harp from hell!
What do you want?
Right now, my troops are fanning out across town for your children. Yes, for your firstborn son.
Life's a bitch. Now so am I.
Dear Penguin, children regret they are unable to attend. Batman.
You're the second man who killed me this week. But I've got 7 lives left.
I tried to save you.
It seems like every woman you try to save ends up dead.
Hey, Batman, push the princess!